Hello everyone, Simon Jacobson here, broadcasting live. It's exciting. We are in very challenging times now, so I want to begin by firstly making sure you're all well and keeping strong and healthy, both physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. Hope you and your families and your close ones and loved ones are well. We're really experiencing something unprecedented that I think none of us can wrap our heads around. And that is literally a global pandemic, as it's called, but it's far more than that. It's affecting literally every person on earth, every sector, every industry, our personal lives, our travels, our plans, everything, our social lives. Wherever you may be, our lives have been disrupted. And we still don't have an inkling where this is going. The unknown, I think, also has wearing a lot on us because, what's the prediction? Is it going to be a week? Is it going to be 2 weeks? Is it going to be 2 months? And then, when we're surrounded by illness and we see people, close ones, and I see it in my own life, here in my community in New York, people literally have died, and young people, it's just so overwhelming. That's why I felt it was important to speak. And I wish I was in your physical presence, but right now we're told to be physically distant. I don't want to call it socially distant, let's call it physically distant, but spiritually closer than ever. Because as much as there is pain and difficulty and separation, this is also a unprecedented opportunity for connection. I don't think I'd be doing this broadcast even. I don't think I'd be doing this speaking to you and connecting with you were it not for this. So it's a tremendous opportunity to connect and realize something that maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, none of us was aware of. And that is that our material lives and our physical schedules and routines and patterns and our comfort zones and security blankets, all the plans, you had ask yourself, ask myself. I had all kinds of plans. I was going for Passover somewhere. I was supposed to be in Brazil this past week. It's all upended. And a sense of loss of control really teaches you much about life. It's like Leonard Cohen said, that the cracks allow the light to get in. Now, why they have to be cracks, that's another discussion I don't want to go into right now. But clearly, we need wake-up calls sometimes to realize what is real. And this is an opportunity. I know many people are very fearful, are even in panic mode, in survival mode, not just about health, but also about our jobs, about economy, about so many different things. But the truth is, you have intact inside of you a powerful, powerful resource. It's called your soul. And even if you may have ignored it, or you may have been distracted, it's always beating inside of you, just like your heart. And now, so many of us are recognizing that. Because we realize security does not come from our plans. Security does not come from our illusion of control. Security does not come from our schedules and our restaurants and our sporting events and our performing arts. They're all beautiful things. But they all belong into the realm that we will call the temporary, impermanent material universe. The way the mystics put it is that the material universe is like a shell. And it's a very exciting one. Fireworks and all kinds of experiences going on there. But beneath the shell, like in the tip of an iceberg, lies tremendous layers and dimensions of spirit and of energy. Now, this is something we all can understand scientifically. Maybe once upon a time you looked at the world, what you saw is what you get. People thought what they saw, that's what you see is what you get. But then science came to teach us, no. You look at a tree, you look at a bird, you look at water, any element. You realize it's made up of the elements. Elements are made up of molecules. Molecules are made up of subatomic atoms. Atoms are made up of subatomic particles. And how far down the rabbit hole can we go? Who knows? Subatomic, sub. Bottom line is, today it's a given that what you see is not what you get. What you see is the surface, the superficial surface. Not that it doesn't exist, but it's not where that makes things tick. Same thing in the human body. Same thing in the human body. You see limbs and organs, eyes, ears, a nose, a mouth, a face, the entire body. But then you realize within the body lies a skeleton. Beneath that there is the cellular structure, the genetic structure, the DNA. Also all invisible, very, very minute microscopic forces that shape who you are. Look here, on a negative sense, this microbe, invisible to the naked eye. Look what kind of havoc it has wreaked the world over. So we understand that the forces beneath the surface. So why is it that we're not really aware of it most of the time? Because when we're living in our comfort zones, and we have so-called an illusion of control, everything seems to be going well. That's been stripped from us. So on one hand, it's extremely unnerving and very challenging, because everything we thought was normal is now something we can't rely on. Everything that we depended on was reliable, so to speak, is not reliable. All our plans, everything, all the control. But the good news is, that doesn't mean you're not in control. It means that you need to look at another dimension of your life. And that's a dimension that's completely in your control. We can't control the events around us. We can protect ourselves, and we should protect ourselves and listen to all the authorities and so on. But that does not mean you cannot control what's inside you. You control your attitude, your hope, your courage, your love. Look what's emerging. It's beautiful to see, even though we'd rather not have been under these circumstances. The nobility, the kindness, the gentleness. Yes, there are people being exploitive. We have that. But there's also a surge of love that's hard to imagine that we would ever see. You see the Zoom meetings, conferences, online, people's initiatives, and so on. So, as much as this is unwanted, it also exposes for us the reality beneath the surface. Because now, as someone just told me, one of my students who knows me for many years, I used to always talk to him about his soul. He says, Rabbi, I don't have time for my soul. I'm busy making money. I have a new girlfriend. I have this, I have that. Now he just called me last week. He says to me, if we don't have an inner life now, we're lost. Because our outer lives are not working. I have my restaurant plans and my dinner plans and this plan and that plan. That's not happening. It's our inner lives. And also another thing that I want to point out, to really stay sane, you need to be of service now. If you're busy either panicking or you're busy complaining, when is this going to end? And just how difficult it is, and let's get back to normal, you're going to find yourself becoming self-destructive. The key thing is to serve, to see ways that you can help others, to be more loving, to be more courageous, to look into your inner values. This is the time for exactly that. I never would have believed that this would ever happen, such a wake-up call, if you wish. But it's happened. And again, I want to repeat as many times as possible, our prayers, our blessings go out, that everyone be healthy and everyone be intact, and that God protect us all, and those that need healing should have complete healing. But every situation is also an opportunity. To just say it happened and let's now just survive, no, that's not. We have to become greater people. And I want to speak, you see me, I don't know, audience out there, but you see me. I'm a Jewish man, as you can tell probably. I come from a nation of people that have been here for 3,800 years, from the time of Abraham. Been to very difficult times. Not only the Holocaust that everyone is aware of, but pogroms, persecutions, genocides, expulsions, you name it. As a matter of fact, we're coming to Passover just in less than 2 weeks. Passover is the first documented story of institutionalized slavery and emancipation. How many narratives in history model themselves after the Exodus? Even the United States of America was founded. They saw it as the new promised land. They even considered Hebrew to be their first language. Didn't work out that way. But they saw it because it was the same idea, from oppression becoming a nation. Black slavery in this country identifies with that idea. What happened to the Jewish people in Egypt? They were 86 years under severe oppression, slave labor, genocide, completely out of control. Their lives were not in their control. And yet we're told, as they were oppressed, in direct proportion to that, they flourished and they thrived. They didn't just survive. They didn't just endure. What happened was they learned to become a greater people. So we don't want pressure. We don't want oppression. But what it does for a human being, it can turn you into the most refined and most enduring, and I would even say permanent, a certain eternity. And here we are, 3,800 years later, just 14.5 million, 0.1% of the human population. Everybody wants to know what's the formula for your endurance, especially in a time like this, because it was always understood that our lives and our success and our security is not based on materialism. I always found it ironic they called securities, financial securities, prudential, the rock. Yes, it's a good advertising lingo, but security can never come from temporary things, because if it's temporary, it's like a foundation that's constantly wavering. How much can you depend on it? But if your foundations are built on faith, are built on higher transcendence, on higher purpose, on meaning, as Viktor Frankl documented. But he documented something which, again, is 3,800 years old. That what? That when your life is driven by deeper meaning, by spiritual purpose, that I have a mission, an indispensable mission, that mission does not change just because you're quarantined in your home. That mission does not change just because you can't have social, external, physical activities outside in public gatherings. Your mission is you. Your soul remains intact. And that's what I want to convey to every one of you. Whether I've met you or I have not met you, I want to tell you I love you. I love your soul. And I hope you love my soul. And I mean it in a very pure way. What does that mean? Your soul is divine. It's indispensable. Think of it as an indispensable musical note in a beautiful cosmic composition. We're one story, all of us. But now we see it. We keep hearing. We're all in it together. A month, 2 months ago, most people did not say we're all in it together. People said, dog eats dog, survival of the fittest. I have my business, you have your business. Here we suddenly see how we're all vulnerable. We're all fragile. We're all part of one larger organism. And a little microbe reminded us of that. Again, we didn't want it this way, but it reminds us of our indispensable spiritual personalities. As the some like to say, we're not physical beings on a spiritual journey. We're spiritual beings on a physical journey. And that is what we are now aware of. The more you connect to that point, I assure you, without question, the more powerful you will become even in this fragile time. Yes, again, we need to protect ourselves, protect our loved ones, follow what the health authorities are saying, what the medical experts and all of that, as much as they know, but we need to trust that. We need to protect. We've seen, unfortunately, the contagious nature of this virus, but we have to, at the same time, there's also our psychological lives, our emotional lives, our attitudes, our souls. And you can now strengthen yourselves in tremendous ways. I can just speak personally on my own, for myself. Since a few weeks ago, I myself was quarantined. I had the symptoms. Thank God they were pretty mild. They're almost all gone. I still don't have taste or smell, in case you're wondering. But I have 3 of my 5 senses functioning. My sight, my sound, and my touch. And hopefully I'll get my taste and smell back as well. It's one of the symptoms. But it's interesting. I can function 3 out of 5, even though it's not exactly pleasant. My point being is, it made me think about a question I've always asked people and asked myself. If you were to shut down your senses, you closed your eyes, your ears, your taste, your touch, and smell. 5 senses. What would happen? I just asked this to somebody just a few months ago who was very involved in the world of finance, and he had all kinds of machinations and so on. All that, of course, has come to a stop. He said to me, that's a very terrifying thought. I don't know what, I think I'd disappear. You don't have your senses. You wouldn't disappear. You know what would happen? The inner you would emerge. But we are so hyper-stimulated. Our senses are. The things we see and the things we hear and the things we smell and taste and touch. That becomes our reality. But love is not subject to your senses. You can use your senses to express love. But love, can you touch love? Can you see love? Can you smell love? Can you hear it? You can hear expressions of it again. Truth, spirit, everything that's permanent in our lives, everything we truly value that endures, that's immortal, is not subject to the senses. And in a way, even though our senses hopefully are alive and kicking, at least some of them, but in a way, the sensory experiences of our lives, our plans, our jobs, our vacations, our entertainment, our friends, everything there has in a way come to a standstill. And we're now in our inner lives. And it is an opportunity of a lifetime. It should come only in peaceful ways, in a peaceful way and a loving way, without pain. But this is our reality. And this teaches us also a lesson. You're not in control of your narrative. It's like watching a movie. And it's a beautiful movie, and then suddenly there's a scene and it reminds you of yourself. Hey, that's like me. And you're excited and you're telling people, hey, that's my story. Then the movie continues, the narrative continues, and suddenly there's a twist and a turn that you didn't expect and that you don't like necessarily. A setback. Something happens, an epidemic, pandemic. And then you say to yourself, 1 second, that's not my script. Then you realize something, you realize you don't control the narrative. The narrative controls you. We're part of a larger choreography. Just because you had the illusion that you controlled your story, that doesn't mean you control it. You believe that you did. It is great freedom, emancipation to come to realize that you're not in control of your material life. You know what you're in control of? How you're going to react. How you navigate. A good swimmer, when there's a stormy sea, doesn't fight the storm. A bad swimmer will fight and often will lose, and God forbid can drown. A good swimmer, a great storm, now's the time to float. Now's the time to be carried by the tide. Now's the time for introspection, for revisiting my values, revisiting who I am. That's what a good swimmer does. It's all about navigation. The same you that navigated a few weeks ago one way, you just have to navigate another way and learn about yourself. You'll be surprised. You're going to discover yourself in a deep way. I ask people, tell me, who are you? They give you their business card. I don't know if they'll do that today, but they give you their business card, and I say, 1 second. Your business card tells me what you do. It doesn't tell me who you are. And so once I remember a woman telling me, well, sadly, what I do has become who I am. Think about that. What you do has become who you are. Who you are should define what you do. Not what you do defines who you are. And now what we do, what we did, our work and so on, even if we're working from home, it's all been rattled, it's been upended. So now's the time to figure out who you are. And that's the key, is to understand your soul. I've been working overtime, developing resources right now. It's been my life mission, my passion, of creating materials that actually help you understand your soul. I began a program called Your Daily Spiritual Antidote. You should go to meaningfullife.com. You can subscribe to it. It's free resources. It's a 3-minute video, just 3 minutes. It was meant to counter all the negative news and fears and unknowns, is to give us like an antidote, a spiritual dose, so to speak. By discussing each day of this antidote, who you are. Let's discover. Let's look into our own hearts and souls. Just like your body is made up of parts, so is your soul. There's a DNA of your soul, and there's a way to nourish it. Just like we nourish our bodies with vitamins and nutrients and exercise and hygiene, there's a way to nourish and nurture your soul. And includes many different ways to do so. So check that out. Now, I know I've received a lot of questions from many of you. And again, this is a great opportunity. I don't believe I've done an Instagram Live before. So, let it be. The age of Corona has created a new program. And it's a new way of connecting. So I felt, let me take some of your questions. And then, of course, if you pose any here, I'll try to address. So before I get into actually specific ones, let me just answer a few questions that I've been receiving a lot. Is, what should we be doing now? What can I be doing to just feel some sense of fulfillment? And my life has really been upended in every possible way, and I don't feel in control. So I think I've answered that question, but I'll answer it more specifically. Every day when you wake up, make a plan. Don't say, oh, you know what, now that I'm not commuting and I don't have to go to work, I don't have a plan. Make a plan, and that plan has to include a few items where you serve, where you offer something to another. This can include getting on the phone, calling someone that you may have not spoken to in a long time. You may even have a falling out with someone. Call them. How are you? Nothing special. Just show concern, show affection if necessary. You could do it by text. You could do it on the internet. There's so many ways to do that. See if there's anyone you can help. This can be either physical help. I mean, we all, in some ways, quarantined, but there are some of us that can do certain things. You can deliver a food package, let's say, to an elderly person. You don't have to even touch them or see them. You can leave it by the door. But find things where you can offer. Now, you'll say, why is that so important? It's not just you're a kind person and you're helping others. That goes without saying. It actually feeds your soul, because your soul is a natural giver. Our bodies and our physical beings are natural takers. You know why? Because the material world, as I mentioned, is insecure. When you're insecure, you're always hoarding. You want more because you are not feeling secure. The soul is very secure. I can give and give and give and don't become less for it. I actually become more. So the more you give, the more your soul comes alive. And the more your soul comes alive, the more confident you become, the more courageous, and the more powerful, especially in trying times. So that's just easy things you can do. There are more things you can do. Another suggestion. Every one of us has talents. Do you know that innovations, some of the greatest innovations, were born in times of pandemics, epidemics? Where did Newton discover his theories of gravity, calculus that she created? You know when it was? During quarantine. The bubonic plague, in his time, he was isolated, had a lot of free time, his imagination was rolling, and he thought of. They say that Shakespeare wrote Macbeth and King Lear and some other plays during plagues at that time. Now, I'm not suggesting a plague is a blessing, but it's an opportunity. You know, a lot of creativity can come out of you right now because you're not distracted by your regular schedules and expectations. You have free time. So maybe it's time to innovate. Innovate a way of, let's say, reaching out and sending a nice message to thousands of people, to hundreds of people. You can innovate in the area of technology. You can innovate in the area of literature. You can write a book. But the key thing is not allow yourself to succumb to the misery. Start listening to the news conferences. You start with the bickering. You start listening to all the reports. These things are not necessarily healthy for our souls. Listen to authorities. We know what we have to do. Stay home. But let your imagination, let your mind, let your heart, your soul fly. You think your soul can't fly and soar in time like this? I would tell you can soar more now than 2 months ago. Because 2 months ago we were bogged down by the gravitational tug and pull of our survival, of our needs. Let your soul soar and find a passion. Find something you're good at. It could be musical. It can be artistic. It can be something you're good with your hands, something carpentry, anything. It can be human connections. And try to innovate. You'll be surprised. Look at a challenge and figure out, maybe I can find a solution to it. It doesn't have to be something earth-shattering. These are just some suggestions. But you see there's one common denominator in all of them. Be proactive. Don't be reactive. They say there are 3 types of people. People who make things happen, people who watch things happen, and people who ask, what happened? Right? You want to be someone that makes things happen, not just watches or asks, to make things happen. And that means activating and generating your proactive side, the side that initiates, that generates, doesn't just wait. It's so easy to be in a reactive mode. You know, what's going to be tomorrow? Will they find the vaccine? Testing positive, negative, what's going on around me? All that needs to be addressed, but that's the bodily health. Then there's the spiritual health, and the spiritual health requires being in the proactive mode. So that's just a general introduction to a big question everybody's asking. I'm going to read a few questions, and hopefully we can commune. There's nothing greater for me, at least, is the dignity of soul communion, because the mystics teach that we're all really one. We're all really one organism. And just as it's inconceivable for a right hand to hit the left hand, it's inconceivable really for us to experience any type of injustice and hurt. Why do people then hurt each other? Because we don't know. We don't recognize the integral and intricate and intrinsic, I should say, connection and intricate connection that we all have. So here's an opportunity for us to connect, and I feel honored and humbled to be able to connect with you. So here are just some questions. I'll just go in, let me see here. How to overcome low self-esteem? Okay, I assume this question is not just coronavirus related. Maybe it's a time where it can expose some of our more vulnerabilities. But the key to overcome low self-esteem, like overcoming most negative feelings, is ironically and counterintuitively is to stop thinking about it. The more you think about the self, and especially if you have a low self-esteem, the more lower you're going to feel about yourself. So you'll say, so what am I supposed to be doing? Focus on another dimension. What you can bring to the world. What can you contribute? Not what you need, but what are you needed for? So when people say I have low self-esteem, I feel I have nothing to contribute, I'm not secure, other people seem to be much better off than I am. Focus on something you can contribute. I mentioned before service. You do something each day where at the end of the day you can say, I feel proud that what I did today has helped another person. It could be one person. It could be a small little act. That builds self-esteem. So the interesting thing is, we live in a era of acquisition. We think we press a button, Amazon Prime, half hour later, an hour later you have it. We learned that we feel we can acquire anything at any given moment. What we've lost respect of sometimes is the concept of that things emerge. You can't just push a button, and there's a process. I'll give an example. If someone said, I want to plant a seed, a flower seed, a rose flower seed in my garden, can you force it? Can you force the flower out of the ground? No. There's a process, and then it emerges. Do the right things, and it will emerge. The same thing is in life. All the good things we want in life, don't deceive yourself into thinking, and now is a great time to recognize that you can just go to the store and buy it. You can buy material items, commodities. But if you want happiness, if you want self-esteem, if you want confidence, these are not things that you can purchase in the catalog. These are not things you can just press a button and get it. You do the right things and it emerges, and it's a process. What are the right things? First thing, serve. Do something for another. That builds self-esteem. Now this requires a different mindset because we become such acquisition-oriented people that everything is a commodity. Self-esteem is another product. I'll buy a book, 10 Steps to Self-Esteem. I can assure you it won't work. You know why? I'm an author, I know this. It won't work because if it did work, there wouldn't be best-selling books keep on telling you about self-esteem. Because if one worked, what do you need another book? So that's a little secret. The point of the matter is, do the right things and then there's a result. People want love. Can you buy love? I mean, I know it's a cliche. Do the right things and you gain love. So do things that are productive, that demonstrate your value by giving to others, and your self-esteem will guaranteed grow. And do not allow that negative voice to come seeping in. And today especially so. Because when you're home, alone, or with family, and you get claustrophobic, so what do you think is going to happen? It could either bring the worst out of you, because now everything is magnified. If you felt bad about yourself a month ago, you're going to feel bad about even worse about yourself now. But there's another approach. Discover another dimension in yourself. That's the opportunity that actually feeds who you are and feeds your growth and feeds your self-esteem. How to conquer day-to-day anxiety. Again, this is a general question at all times, but let's be specific here. How to conquer the day-to-day anxiety. So let me say this. I don't want to sound like repetitive and redundant, but maybe there are certain formulas that you keep repeating, mantras, that they are actually solve a lot of problems. Now, anxiety feeds off boredom, emptiness. When you're busy, it's harder to be anxious because you're busy doing something. So I have to repeat myself. If you were right now getting on the phone and you need to speak to someone, you schedule every day at 4 o'clock or whatever the time is every morning, I'm going to be speaking to a cousin who's in a very difficult situation, and just words of encouragement. You tell me during that phone call, do you think you're going to be suffering from anxiety? You know why you won't be? You'll be so busy with that person, you won't have time to think about it. Now here it brings me to an important message. which I always find difficult to how to present it diplomatically. But I can tell you, in the age of the corona, it's a lot easier to express. And that is, people think that when you think about yourself, that's the best, healthiest thing to be, is to be self-conscious. I don't mean self-conscious as in self and be self-conscious and afraid of how people think about you. You're conscious of yourself. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. The happiest, the most anxiety-free, stress-free people are people who don't think about themselves. The more you think about yourself and your happiness, the more you think about how can I fill my needs, frankly, the more misery that builds. I know it sounds very counterintuitive. What does that mean? What does that mean? If I'm hungry and I don't think about being hungry, I'm not going to eat. But hunger is a physical thing. Let's talk about the psyche of a human being. It works very differently. Interestingly, the soul, as I said, thrives on giving, on loving. That's our natural state. Don't deceive yourself into thinking that just because we become adults and we're thrust into a hostile world where if you don't take care of yourself, you're told no one's going to take care of you. Dog eats dog, survival of the fittest, and so on. That we're actually sharks that are just in it for ourselves. We always remain loving human beings. It just goes undercover at times, or we need to protect ourselves, or we put up armor. How many hours do we invest in the defense mechanisms and defensive tactics to protect ourselves? Well, now is a time when we're more vulnerable, and we recognize we're not totally in control, is to think about that part of yourself. Your soul is extremely secure and confident, not because it hoards, because it owns, it's because it gives. The most secure people are the ones that know how to give. The more you give, the less you think about yourself and your needs, the less anxiety you will have. Now, of course, there's a catch-22. You can say, I'm anxious. Since I'm anxious, how can I get myself in that mode? Well, it's like people say, I'll be happy if good things happen to me. But if you're happy, good things would happen to you. If you are in that mode that I'm describing, you will become less anxious. Now, of course, I'm not discussing clinical or more medical situations where a person needs medication or something. I'm just talking about more things we can do in this particular time. Okay. Let me take another few questions here. How do we properly communicate through social distancing? We're losing that face-to-face connecting. How can we keep that part alive? Well, there's an expression they say about love, that distance, what's the word they use, that being apart makes people closer because you begin to appreciate each other. I would submit that our relationships, even when we're face-to-face, often can be, you could be sitting face-to-face with someone, and I'll share a story. It was before this era, meaning the era of distancing. The story is, I met a friend of mine. We were both being driven to a wedding. We hadn't seen each other quite a few years. We were classmates, friends. So I thought a great opportunity. We're both in the back seat, then we're being driven to talk. Anyway, my friend is busy texting. I could not get his attention. I elbowed him. I did this. I could not get his attention. Anyway, finally I came up with an innovative idea. I texted him. I remember he sees, I look at him, I knew it would unnerve him, disorienting. He looks at his phone, looks at me, sees my text. He says to me, "Are you texting me?" Because first he thought maybe I texted him earlier and it came in now, it just arrived. I said to him, "Yes, I am." He says, "Why are you texting me? You're sitting right near me." He said, "Because I can't get your attention." So then he laughed and he said, "Okay, so get online. I'll text back when I'm ready." It's a perfect example. We were face to face. We were sitting right near each other. But we can so easily not be in touch. Now, paradoxically, the fact that we are not sitting near each other, suddenly you learn to appreciate those that you love. So of course there's great beauty and benefit being able to sit with someone eye to eye, face to face, body language and all that. And that will come back. But now is an opportunity to realize that our relationship is not just physical proximity. It's spiritual proximity. You could have 60,000 people sitting in a stadium and cheering the Yankees or the Boston Red Sox or the Giants or the 49ers or whoever it may be, or the Kansas City Chiefs. And yet they're all cheering, and you could think, wow, such unison, such unity. And then everybody just walks home. They never see each other again. It's an illusion of unity. For the moment, everybody's celebrating, applauding the same event. And now, and the truth is, you don't have to have 60,000. You can be sitting with someone who's 1,000 miles away from you, 100,000 miles, and the love is there. The love of a mother to a child, of a father to a child, of siblings. I'm talking about healthy situations. Time and space does not make a difference. Of course you want to hug that person. Of course you want to be close. But the love doesn't begin with the physical proximity. It begins with the spiritual proximity. This is what we have now. I can speak to you, and I'm hopefully speaking words from the heart that enter the heart. Just because I see you physically, and I see you, let's say, in the outside in some social gathering, that doesn't mean we're connected. So now we really connect, and what our objective is, that when this thing is over, that we can return back to our physical proximity and it be infused with our spiritual closeness. So social distancing, or let's call it physical distancing, spiritually closer than ever. That's what we are aiming for. So each has its quality, and at the same time, right now we have the opportunity to appreciate those deeper things, those deeper experiences. Okay, how to effectively spread positivity in this time of contagious anxiety and fear. I once heard an expression, you either influence people or they influence you. So I remember wondering, one second, isn't there something in between? No, there is nothing in between. You're either picking up and assuming other people's attitudes, or you are projecting yours and others are influenced by it. It's a choice we have to make. Like people say, you know what, I'll go only into a party. Okay, now, not today, we're not going to parties, but I'll only go to an event or a party in the good times, or I would say good times, in the other times, and only if people are happy. No, if you're a happy person, even if people are not happy, yes, it's a challenge, you still maintain your composure, your presence of mind and heart, and you allow yourself to give. So the answer is a very straightforward one. Do not allow the anxiety and fear around us to affect us. Now, I know people say, listen, I'm quarantined, sequestered here with my family. They're all in a very frustrated mode. Everyone's on top of each other. Our nerves are frayed. We're all really in a difficult place. So, look, we have to all be practical human beings. We're all going to go through different challenging moments. Go into a private room, either call a friend or text someone, and try to regain your equilibrium. And then come back and say to your mother, or to your father, or to your sibling, or to your children, I love you. How can I help? That's the approach we should be striving for. Will it always be perfect? Not necessarily. But that's what we should be striving for, because that's who we are as human beings. That's who we are. So with that said, I will go now to another question. Okay. Sorry about that. My phone in place. Let me see here. How to combat boredom and loneliness. Oh yeah. I want to share a story, and then I'll answer that question, because it just brings to mind something that I think is very valuable, especially now. I remember I was once speaking for a group of teens at risk. Now they, thank God, were already in rehab, and they were dealing with their challenges in a very unique way. But they were interesting people. So I remember we were speaking with each other, and I asked them a question. I said, listen, nobody begins life by wanting to be an addict. Nobody begins to, whether it's drugs or alcohol or gambling or porn or whatever it may be. Nobody says, I am now, my objective is I want to become an addicted human being, addicted to whatever it may be. Because it's controlling you instead of you controlling it. Whoever says that's what I want to be, I want to become controlled by some other force. How did you guys fall into this? How did it happen? So then I went around the table. One person said, well, I was coming out of my parents, a very ugly and painful divorce, and I was just trying to numb the pain. I began to drink until it became an addiction. Another person said it was bad friends and bad influences. Another one went through another loss. They lost a parent. Everyone had a reason that drove them in that direction. So I said, but there are other people who've had losses, who've had bad divorces, the ugly divorces, and still did not become addicted. So how do you explain that? I was waiting for a particular answer because there's symptoms and there's roots. Till somebody said the word that I was waiting for, and that is boredom. I was bored. Now, most of us think boredom, big thing, so I'm bored. Big thing. Everyone's bored at times. Boredom is a breeding ground. It's a breeding ground. It itself may not be so horrific and may not seem so ominous, but it's a breeding ground, and nature abhors a vacuum. So does the human being. A breeding ground means I'm bored. So if I'm bored, what am I going to do now? It's like a thirsty person who doesn't have anything healthy to drink. What do you think is going to happen at some point? They're going to drink something toxic. Boredom is just waiting for a time bomb to explode. I'm bored. What's going to entertain me now? How will bring me a high? And you will reach for whatever comes your way. Now, if your life happens to be difficulty, that could add and contribute to it. So we have to understand how boredom and loneliness are sometimes worse than any disease. I can tell you without question, as bad as an illness may be, if you have other people with you, holding your hand or just even encouraging you, it gives you strength. It builds your immunity system. It's not just a nice gesture. So loneliness and boredom in a certain way, they're like close cousins, creates that. Think of two people, God forbid, in the hospital. They both have the same illness. One person has guests and visitors. I don't know if that works today. One person has gifts. People are sharing. People are giving them encouragement. The other person, unfortunately, is just lying in bed alone. No one calls on them. No one cares. Do you think there's going to be a difference? Of course there'll be a difference. In the first case, it builds the immunity system. It builds your strength. It builds your will to live. You want to fight. And it actually affects psychosomatically and your chemicals and your adrenaline, makes you a stronger person. The other person, the loneliness can kill you more than the illness. So it's critical to know, especially today, because we are not in our regular comfort zones, it's very easy to fall into a frustrated and trap. And remember, this has only been a few weeks, the quarantining, the lockdowns, or whatever they call it. Hopefully it's going to end soon, but it may not end right away. So it can get worse. So it's critical to realize that boredom and loneliness is your enemy. It's your silent enemy. So how do you combat it? You don't combat it with a gun. You don't combat loneliness. Just like you cannot eliminate darkness with ammunition. You eliminate it by bringing light into your life. The opposite of boredom is something that you're passionate and excited about. Remember I said earlier, we live in a commodity, psychological minded world. Everything is like a product. How do I fight boredom? What pill can I take? What action can I do? You do it by doing the right things, and automatically it dispels. Like light automatically dispels darkness. So just replace the word darkness with boredom. Replace loneliness with darkness. What do you get? You need light. So bring light into your life. How do you bring light? A few ways. Firstly, I gave you a list earlier. I'll just repeat it again, especially for those that may have joined afterwards. Be of service, show love, show courage. Do things that help others. Automatically, that compels you. Commit yourself to doing that. I've committed myself to all kinds of programs. What do you think that does? It doesn't leave me bored, trust me, because I'm busy with teaching, one thing to the next thing. Yes, it could sometimes, you say maybe you're in overdrive, but you know what? I'd prefer that than boredom. Do things, help others, commit in a way that you can't get out of it. Do something, commit to something good. Maybe study with someone online. Maybe make 5 phone calls in the next hour. Text. Do things that help another. And you'll be surprised what it does to your boredom and to your loneliness. And I mentioned before, anxiety and low self-esteem. I know it sounds like one size fits all, one formula that solves many problems, but the truth is it does. It does answer many issues here. Okay. Tips for anxiety about the unknown future. So I addressed that. I'll just maybe give another take on it. Life is always unknown. The fact that 2 months ago or 2 years ago we thought we had a future planned was not necessarily the case. It was just that we thought it had it planned. We are not in control of our lives. We're in control of what we do with our lives. Where you'll live, where you'll be taken. Right now, God wants us to be at home. So you can say, kick and scream and say, no, it's not my plan. I disagree. Change my destiny. Or you can say, okay, that's where you want me to be. I will make the best of it. I will learn to navigate. I will learn to find new strengths, discover new activities, and discover new potential. Because that's exactly what this opportunity allows us to do. It's a very different approach. Remember I said before about a good swimmer. The good swimmer does not fight the tide. You don't control the tide. You don't control the weather. You control what you're going to do about it. You must come to terms with that. You come to terms with that, then the unknown future becomes something very different. It becomes actually, maybe it's an exciting adventure. That you don't know the script. That you don't know exactly where you're going to be led to. That's pretty interesting. We all hope and we want it to lead us to the best possible scenarios. But you know something? Whatever happens, you're ready for it because you're the navigator. You're at the wheel. Where the twists and turns will take you will happen and you will navigate. That's number one. There's a beautiful story I want to share. It's a story with Rabbi Meir. So he was once in a city. It was an icy winter, and he wanted to go to the mikveh. Today the mikvahs are closed, but he wanted to go to the ritual bath before Shabbat. The problem is the slopes were slippery, and in the winter nobody went because it was dangerous. He was an elderly man, no problem. He walked. 2 young men were very cynical and skeptical. They followed him. They wanted to see what kind of magic trick, or maybe is he not going? What's the story here? They watched. And yes, he walked down the slope without any support. Perfect. Went in, came back. When they went the slope, they slipped. One of them broke a leg. Afterwards, they asked Rabbi Meir, they asked him, how did you manage that? You're not a young man. And he said the expression, when you're tied above, you don't fall below. You're tied above, you don't fall below. What is above? You're tied to a value system, to faith, to trust, to something that's greater than you are. This, my friends, is one of the greatest secrets in life. We've been taught, like the fountainhead Ayn Rand model, self-reliance. I'm a Superman. I can do anything I want. Now, there's a certain power in that, teaching you don't be dependent on others. You're not subjugated to others. You have all the strengths you have. But it's missing something vital. As Hillel said, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? That's correct. So the first thing is empowerment, individual empowerment. But then there's a second half that Ayn Rand missed. If I'm only for myself, what will I be? I mentioned before we're all musical notes in a large composition. For coming to that cognizant reality, cognizance, being aware that yes, you are a self-contained, absolute, indispensable individual, but at the same time, so are others. And we all need each other. You need me, I need you. And both are necessary. You need to do your part. At the same time, they need to do their part. Is actually is more power than thinking you can do it all. Because there's the synergy that comes from that. We were trained to think, no, dependence on others is only a necessary evil. Can't, like someone once told me, you take a partner because you have no choice, not because you like him. Life is all about cross-pollination. Look at nature. If nature had that attitude, we wouldn't exist. Bees pollinate the flowers. And they in turn get fed and the flowers are pollinated. And they carry the pollen to another flower. This is all a give and take. Everyone is getting something and everyone's giving something. This is how nature works. Our human body works that way. It's only human beings that are resistant to that concept for whatever reason. Either we become overly reliant on others, or we become totally feel we don't need to be reliant on others. So the concept of our lives is recognizing that there is that mystery and that unknown, because the truth is that we are really all parts of a larger picture. And it's our choice is how we're going to navigate that picture. Okay. How can I be patient with my children? Well, everything is always easier said than done. It's easier to give others advice than you take yourself. I believe that we have now a tremendous opportunity to connect to our children in ways that we never would have imagined. I remember a few years ago, it was before Rosh Hashanah, the high holiday, and I received an email. The email said to me, "Can you suggest something? You know, I read your weekly articles and your suggestions, and can you suggest something for the new year that I can do with my children?" It was interesting. The next day, everything is divine providence, I receive another email from a friend that lives now in Israel. She came from Paris, and she sent me a picture of herself as a young girl, maybe a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, with one devastating line. What happened to this young innocent soul? How did I get from there to here? And then I got the idea, flash of an idea. And I wrote up an email suggesting for parents for the new year a new way to look at your children. Your child is God's gift to you. Your child does not belong to you. You're a guardian. You are a gardener. So every morning when your child awakes, or children awake, in addition to telling them I love you and dressing them and breakfast and all that, say to them one more line, or a few more lines. You are my most precious gift. God sent you to this world and gave me the honor to be your gardener, to help you grow, to help you flourish. I will do everything in my power to make sure, to validate and empower and give you that confidence and courage that you can actualize your unique energy in this world, because you have a unique mission. Say that every morning, and then in the evening before they go to sleep. And you'll see that will generate conversation, because you're telling your child there's a soul. But not just say it mechanically, lip service. Let me tell you what happened. A year later, that same woman who asked for the suggestion, as well as others that wrote to me, said it changed our homes, our lives. Because it did generate conversation. Our children started asking, my husband started asking, other siblings, everyone started talking. What is this unique mission? What is that soul? So in addition to everything else, we suddenly we lifted the conversation, the dialogue, to another level of spiritual consciousness, even on a child's level. And that was the picture of the child that reminded me. And I wrote back to that woman, I said, that child is still alive in you. It's just been hijacked. Maybe it's been distracted. You developed another personality, that you're protecting that inner child. And maybe the time has come to let that child maybe look at your picture. Maybe look at it once a day. Maybe now is a good time, actually, when we're quarantined. And say, that's me. That's the real me. You know, in technology, they say an iOS phone or an Android, version 10 is better than version 9. 9 is better than 8, hopefully. In human beings, I would say the opposite. 1.0 is better than 2.0. Our purest, most innocent, most divine, most beautiful self is, you know when? When we were young, newborn children. Freshly fallen snow. Before it was trampled on, before toxins entered. I don't just mean physical toxins, also emotional, spiritual, psychological toxins. So, but that's never disappeared. It's like your heart, it's always within you. Now is the time to reconnect. Imagine the reunion, the joy, the pure exuberance, the sense of adventure and free abandon that children have. That the adult in you connects with the child in you. What kind of celebration that would be? Is that not like work we can do now? I submit that's how we should look at our children, and let ourselves turn into children. Reconnect. Passover is coming. What is Passover? It's a celebration with children. So much about it orbits around the children. We ask questions to provoke. We do change things to provoke them to ask questions. We want them to say, Manishtana, why is this different? I mean, every year, Manishtana, for many people, different? Well, it's the same Seder like last year. Why am I saying Manishtana? Okay, that's what the sages want us to say. How is this night different? I would submit in 2020, in the age of Corona, Passover, Manishtana is going to be real Manishtan. How is this night different? Yes, it's different in every possible way. We had all kinds of plans. We were going to have guests. We may have traveled. Now we're at home. Maybe a small group, our family. It's very different. But the difference can be seen in a negative way, and saying, oh, that's terrible. Or it can be seen in a positive way. It's different and unique and extraordinary. Let's connect in a new way. Let the Seder become an experience of touching our children in new ways. Recognizing what a gift. You tell me, if you looked at your child, even if they frustrated you, even if times they do upset us, or they put it there, they get on our nerves, or whatever it may be, pause, close your eyes, and say, this is God's gift. He sent me this gift. This is a life that God sent me. Now is the time for me to appreciate it. I'm not suggesting we're going to be perfect, but try it out. You wouldn't believe what kind of experience that would be. And then take it one step further. You are that child. There's an expression in the prophets. Malachi says, and the hearts of the parents will return through their children, through the hearts of the children. When you bring out your child's beauty and dignity and majesty, they bring out your dignity and majesty and your inner child. And maybe it's time to go back to that innocence. And today it's easier than ever. You know why? Because all the distractions and all that outer world stimulation, and we don't have the excuse to say, oh, I gotta run to work. Now all of that allows us the time and the opportunity. So yes, this time can be seen in a very challenging way. Like, what am I going to do with all this time at home? No change of climate, no change of environment, no change of faces. I'm seeing the same people. Or you could see the same people with a new way, and with the new eyes, in a new light. And what I really pray and hope for, this will be over soon, but I hope what's not over is the awakening that this has taught us. It should be a new normal. We should go back to normal, but a new normal. A more sensitive one, a more heightened one, a deeper one. My heart goes out to everyone, because I see how challenging this is for so many of us. So different. I would even say we're in shock mode. People don't even realize how challenging it is, because we're still just trying to come to terms, to adjust. As I said, how long is this going to be? But as each day's passed, there are going to be better days, there are going to be more difficult days. Your soul remains intact. Connect with it. The more you connect to that inner child, to that beautiful part of yourself, I guarantee you, will not just allow you to navigate. What it will allow you to do is to create a new approach to life. Even better than the one we had just a few months ago when everything seemed so secure. True security is what we're capable of achieving now. Now, I hope this is the first of many different Instagram programs. I really encourage you to send questions in and comments. Anything I can do to help, please. Go to meaningfullife.com. A full array of resources. In the last just 2 weeks we produced. Go to meaningfullife.com/corona, a special section. Subscribe especially to your daily spiritual antidote. I think you'll appreciate it. A lot what I've said here continues in those antidotes. And it's a daily, 3 minutes, really like a dose, like a vitamin, that will give you strength and insight and introspection. And as I go along, we go deeper into the soul. Get to know your soul. Let it flourish. Let it blossom. Fly. Spread your wings. As strange as it sounds, we're quarantined. In many ways, we're like constricted. Mitzrayim, constriction. But in many ways, we can spread our wings like never, ever before. I thank you. I want to bless you all. God bless you to be healthy and well, you and your families. Be strong. And remember, be strong emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. Not just for you, but everyone around you. We all need each other. And we're all connected in one large organism. It's been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you. God bless you.